In the years leading up to the Al-Aqsa flood, a series of peace agreements and regional changes were quietly reshaping West Asia. Governments that once fought wars against the Zionist regime began to move towards normalizing relations.
U.S. President Donald Trump hailed the signing of the Abraham Accords at the White House as an historic day.
But why? What made countries, some of whom had deep scars from past conflicts, suddenly change course? At the center of it all was a grand project, an ambitious plan to reframe the Zionist regime's position in the region. This wasn't just about peace on paper. It was about transforming the Zionist regime into a political, security, and economic hub. But behind this plan was something much deeper. A strategic vision backed by the United States and its allies.
The miracle of energy in the land of the Bible.
To make this happen, the Zionist regime had to redefine its role.
It can also summon economic resources and political support. I think it's for a potential peace deal.
Politically, it tried to position itself as a key player in West Asia and brand itself as an island of stability.
I announced that the United States will work with our partners to invest in economic corridors. In practice, it means we're focusing on regional infrastructure projects that deliver results across multiple countries and in multiple sectors.
Economically, mega projects were proposed, like an ambitious economic corridor that would place the Zionist regime at the heart of Asia's trade with Europe.
We'll build a new corridor of peace and prosperity that connects Asia through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel to Europe.
And the creation of a tech hub modeled after Silicon Valley and the Negev Desert, in the heart of the occupied territories, to introduce the regime as a center of innovation and business.
Amazon is planning to invest $7.2 billion through the year 2037 in Israel.
The Trump administration says it's a deal years in the making. It's involved Secretary of State Mike Pompeo flying to Sudan and Israel's Prime Minister making an official visit.
At the heart of this grand design was the normalization of relations, with the Abraham Accords acting as a diplomatic breakthrough. The promise? A safer, more connected, and economically integrated West Asia, all revolving around the Zionist regime.
The progress between Saudi Arabia and Israel was progressing incredibly well.
But just as this plan was nearing implementation, the Al-Aqsa flood operation struck.
Operation Al-Aqsa flood.
Shattering the carefully constructed American Zionist narrative.
Good afternoon. I'm Stephanie Ramos here in New York. We are coming on the air with breaking news. Stunning developments in Israel as Palestinian militants fired thousands of rockets into Israel overnight in a surprise assault by land, sea, and air. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu telling the people of Israel they are at war.
This has taken Israel by surprise.
Palestinian militant group Hamas launching a massive, unprecedented military operation.
From a security standpoint, the Zionist regime's image as a stable hub, which it had worked for decades to build after various Arab defeats in past wars, was completely destroyed. The Al-Aqsa flood operation exposed the flaws in the Zionist regime's military calculations, despite being based on some of the world's most advanced tools, including artificial intelligence. But the impact didn't stop there. Economically, ambitious projects like the proposed corridor were thrown into uncertainty, with investors and governments becoming hesitant. Politically, the regime's brutal response and acts of genocide in Gaza further strained relations with Arab governments who had promised their citizens the realization of a Palestinian state. Imam Khamenei framed this operation as a pivotal moment. According to him, a vast US-backed plan aimed at reshaping the region was thwarted by the Al-Aqsa flood. The Zionist ambitions to dominate the politics and economy of West Asia were undermined in a single moment.
هدف هؤلاء تحويل هذا الكيان إلى بوابة لتسطير الطاقة من المنطقة إلى بلاد الغرب واستيراد البضائع والتقانة من الغرب إلى المنطقة، وهذا يعني ضمان وجود المغتصب وجعل المنطقة بأجمعها تابعة له، والسلوك السفاح والوقح لهذا الكيان نجاة المناضلين ناجم عن الطمع بتحقيق هذا الهدف. یک نقشه جامع وسیعی به وسیله آمریکا و عناصر صهیونیست و دنباله‌های آنها و بعضی از دولت‌های منطقه طراحی شده بود. قرار بود مناسبات و معادلات منطقه تغییر پیدا کند. ارتباط رژیم صهیونیستی با دولت‌های منطقه طبق خواسته خود اون رژیم تنظیم بشه. معناش تسلط رژیم صهیونیستی بر سیاست و اقتصاد کل منطقه غرب آسیا بلکه کل دنیای اسلام بود. چیزی نمونده بود که این برنامه و نقشه بلند مدت به مرحله اجرای عملی برسد. در یک چنین لحظه حساسی حمله طوفان الاقصی آغاز شد و همه نقشه های دشمن رو برباد داد.
The massacres and devastation are putting countries under pressure to act against Israel. Some have already announced they're breaking off diplomatic relations.
As the dust settled, one fact became clear. The Zionist regime's security doctrine, built on regional supremacy, faced an unprecedented challenge. David Ben-Gurion, the regime's founder, was aware of its vulnerabilities, such as its large immigrant population, lack of strategic depth, and the animosity it had created through decades of occupying parts of Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon. To address these weaknesses, Ben-Gurion developed a security doctrine based on three core principles: deterrence, early warning, and decisive offensive capability. The regime then showcased this deterrence during its wars with Arab nations. But in the Al-Aqsa flood and its aftermath, it wasn't powerful governments, but rather Hamas and Hezbollah that dealt a fatal blow to a force that once seemed invincible.
ارتشی که ادعا می‌کرد جزو قوی‌ترین ارتش‌های دنیاست، در داخل سرزمین خود شکست خورده. از کی شکست خورده؟ از یک دولت قوی؟ نه، از گروه‌های مقاومت، از حماس، از حزب الله، از اینا شکست خورده. طوفان الاقصی اینه.
I think it would be written as the beginning of the end of the Zionist project.
Israel's war on Gaza has raged for nearly a year. After almost a year of war, is Hamas still capable of fighting the Israeli army?
In the aftermath, the Zionist regime's efforts to return to the status quo have fallen short. With ongoing political and military challenges, the regime is grappling with a new reality. After the Knesset, the parliament of the Zionist regime, rejected any attempts to establish a Palestinian state, the normalization of relations with Arab countries now seems out of the question.
لا ريب في أن أحلام الصهاينة والأمريكيين هذه إنما هي محض أوهام مستحيلة.